here, I would like to ask Ravi Soni sir to please come up on the stage. Sir here has 15 years of experience and now he is currently working as cloud architect in Rishabh software.
Ravi sir is here to give us info on developing on AWS. Sir is here to share his knowledge about developing and designing on AWS. Everyone give a big round of applause for Ravi sir. क्या यार audience भूल जाते हो? Big round of applause.
Sir, the stage is yours.
Yeah, thank you. How many are first time using cloud or AWS or done some hello words? Basically, and whoever never done any hello word? I think so many. So this is the right place to be here, okay? Because we wants to learn here how you start developing with the AWS. Okay, so where do you enter? Where do you start? How you build the different things with the AWS. So we'll go with the very basic things, nothing complicated here because we don't like things complicated. Okay, very basic agenda. We'll talk about first about me because I need to introduce myself. So this is Know Your Speaker. Okay, we'll talk about how you develop the AWS, what you do, what you need, tools, technologies, how you see different combinations. That one. We'll see the different services, either there is a hosted services, how you access, the other services, how you access, what you do, how it connects to each other, what are the security that you need to consider, how you do the networking, because when you talk about the cloud, the networking is the first things that you need to understand. And so how those services talk to each other, what is your takeaway. Then we'll talk about how you connect it, how you use those ones, what you need it. Okay, how you set and then you go one by one that one. We'll see once you develop something, how you deploy it. So what AWS gives you for a deployment, it helps you to put it on the working. And then once you do a deployment, things goes crazy because now you need to understand that what is wrong, why it's not working. Okay, then it tells you that these are the places where you can tell, you can track, you can monitor usage. We have a lot of memes that there was one beggar and two beggars were discussing how you become the beggar, and another said that I run EC2 overnight and I got a bankrupt. So I believe you don't want to get a bankrupt. So the monitoring is also the equivalent part. So before you jump, you understand this sequence. Okay, so you take the informed decisions. And it doesn't take you the bankrupt or your father to the bankruptcy, okay? Because you cannot fight bankruptcy. Eventually, you will have to go to jail or you will have to sell your properties. So we don't want to go that route. So that's why this course is very important, okay? And then we'll see basic set of applications that you can develop and what the combination of services that AWS helps you to do that one. Okay, so this is about me. I'm Ravi Soni. I work with the 15 plus years, around 20s on the Java programming cloud and all sort of programming. I do code to the deployment, so I write the code, test it, and do the deployment, every end-to-end system designing. I'm a community builder, 2X certified. Here my certificates are expired, so I also need to renew it and will apply for a challenge to get 50% discount. I'm OAPS member. OAPS, who knows OAPS? It is again one foundations give you best practices for the securities, do the better programming. When the programmer makes common mistakes, it teach you how to take care of those common programming problems and make the secure application. So webs is a fantastic place to follow. They have a lot of open source learning systems, and then I have a lot of crazy things that I will do it in some time. You can see if you want to sponsor or want to join it, we can go for that one. You can connect it. I don't use Ravi Soni, I use Ravi Soni as a short form. So you can connect it almost everywhere, you will find me. Okay. And I'm mostly active on the LinkedIn and the other platform. So why you want to develop? Okay. Yes, it gives you on-demand computing systems, hundreds of services, around 200 plus services that you have it. It's scalable, so you can start from teeny tiny to go to the monster system can take you bankruptcy in a second, within an hour. So that kind of systems are there. You need to choose the wisely, okay, what you need, rather than you just need a one glass water and you buy for a tanker of water. That kind of a situation, we're not able to handle it. So it scales infinite and also costs you the infinite money. So that is one. It's a secured compliance. Almost all compliance certificates are available with the different services. So you can use either the banking or the finance or the healthcare systems. You can build over that one. It is one of the fastest growing ecosystems compared to the other cloud provider, other systems. So whatever you need, this cloud system has for you. Okay. So why the cost effective? It's not a in sense of the cost effective. It doesn't give you any cheap. Okay. It gives you pay as you go in terms of. So if you are trying something, you can try something very small amount of money, and if you grow, you can grow with the cloud, and you can spend more money to have more resources required. And then if no one is using it, again you can turn down and then save the cost. I'll give you one more example. With the Airbnb, okay, you can find that study. When there was a COVID pandemic, everything was shut down in the USA, and no one can rent any apartments, anything on the Airbnb. So Airbnb was having a massive amount of computing systems on the cloud. So what they did is they reduced their workload. Okay, so any guess how much money they have saved it on reducing the workload in a COVID pandemic on Airbnb? Any guessing number? Guesswork? $60 million. Okay, in a cloud expenditure, they saved it just because of reducing the compute resources that were required. So this is how it's elastic. It saves you money. Innovative, everything that you need, they innovative much faster than us and what we think it. So they are maybe a couple steps ahead on us in the market. So whatever they releases right now, that may be a build over a couple of years back. And that we see right now. So that is how the fast in innovations. Broad ecosystems, 200 plus servers, SDKs, examples, community days, learning resources, Udemy's, skill builder, and hundreds of places you learned it, and people help you to build the system. So it is one of the largest ecosystems of a technology. Okay, and so AWS, so have a services. Okay, you heard services, AWS services. Okay, so how do you see the services basically? Okay, so AWS has certain kind of services which work other than the other services. Consider the S3 service. Okay, so how do you define the S3 service? What it terms? It's a pure SaaS service. Okay, so what is SaaS service is basically you don't take care of the hardware, underlying resources. Okay, how it scales, how it patched, what operating system it runs, how it hosted, load balancers, it's not your worry. You put your data and get the data, and based on your data size that you stored, you pay for that one. So that is a hosted services which is called as also SaaS services, where AWS takes care of everything for you. You just consume over their web console, that's it. Or you have an SDK to do the certain operations like putting the data, getting the data, deleting the data. Okay, that's it. But what happens underlying where the data is stored, you don't get the hard disk access. You don't get the folder access underneath. So there is a hosted services like DynamoDB. You have a table, you store the data, you get the data, query the data. But under it, you don't know anything, how it's done. Okay, so it gives you a flexibility of just looking into your business operations rather than looking into the internal systems management, patching, okay, how to scale if the peak loads goes up. Okay, you only care about the storage and the usage and pay what you use. You don't use it, you don't pay for that one. It is always available for you. So that is called the SaaS services, and AWS has S3 bucket, Lambda, DynamoDB, whole set of services goes there. Okay, which managed by the AWS. Okay, another one is similarly it's also a managed services, but it's not fully managed by the AWS, though it is managed by the AWS. But when you create those services like RDS, okay, then it actually create a one EC2 instance for you under the hood, and then run the database exclusively for you. So that database is only for you, and then it's remain with you. Even you don't use it, but the database is up, it costs you the money. Okay, so it is basically you renting your EC2 system and running the Postgres, or you have RDS and run the Postgres. Okay, it's the same, but the here thing is a bit different. That it costs you the money, but the management, maintenance, patching, backing up the database is managed by the AWS. So this is how the S3 bucket and then the DynamoDB are different than RDS services. So there are many services which actually runs over the EC2 underneath. So RDS is a one, then Kubernetes cluster is second, then the messaging queues are third, and there are a whole set of services there. Even the load balancer is also run over the hardware. Okay, but you don't see it directly. But it costs you for the money. So if you create it, it starts costing you the money. Okay, it's not based on the use. On a S3 bucket, you created the folder, but if you have not stored anything, it doesn't cost you money. So this is how those two are different here. Okay. When you have those two different services, okay, how you access those ones? Okay, because every those services has a different ways of connecting to each other. Working patterns are different. Okay, so consider the S3 bucket, the SaaS services. Okay, the SaaS services is are all managed by the AWS itself, and so they give you the endpoints. The endpoints are that need to connect it. So consider that this is the cloud, your environment. The endpoints are something outside of this room. Okay, so this is how it get treated. It's not actually part of your VPC. Okay, so if you are putting the data previously when I'll talk a couple of years back, you put the data on S3 bucket, it goes actually a public network. So it was considered as outside of the VPC. But now they provide you the secured access called a VPC endpoint. So when you have a VPC and then you connect to the endpoint, your data goes to from your VPC to the S3 bucket or the DynamoDB on a secure channel, and it stays within your VPC. So this is how you access the data from your VPC or your system to those SaaS services. Okay, it gives you security features where you need to put either the IAM policies or access controls, and SA is a particular example. Okay, if you don't do that one, then you will also charge for outbound gateway. Yep. Similarly, how do you access RDS? Okay, it's still the services. Okay, half of them managed by AWS. Enter the you just create it. So here, whenever the services are run over the EC2s or underlying hardware, basically those are created within the VPC premises. Okay, so that means that you need to provision the network, you need to provision the security groups, network access, open the ports, access the port, and you need to put it within your parameter, and then you connect it based on their protocol services. So this is how you connect it with the services are hosted and has the underlying EC2s. Like RDS is the prime example, MQ is the second one, then Kubernetes clusters is the third one, and there are series of services which have this model of working. Okay, so different here is that for a S3 bucket you create the VPC endpoints, DynamoDB you create the DynamoDB endpoints, and then you connect it to the securely connect from your applications to those environment. Where in this hand, okay, you don't get the VPC endpoints, you get your networking created, your systems are hosted within your network premises, and then you need to take care of your networking. AWS would not take care of your networking requirements here upfront. Okay, so you are responsible either making it the public or making it the private somewhere. Okay, opening port, not allowing to the port. I have seen many people host these RDS systems on a public network because they want to connect it from their home PC. But they don't understand that the other people are also connecting to your database and doing that stuff. So this is how the security applies where the hosted systems and the SaaS systems. Another one is now a security, because how to access them and then what kind of security parameters applies to those systems. So if you take the SaaS system, okay, then you need to have an AWS identity and access management policies to be applied. So either you create a role and use that role to connect to the S3 bucket, use the role and IAM policies to connect to the DynamoDB, and so on all those services. Okay, so this is how you authenticate it and make sure that only right people connect to those resources. But on the other hand, when you have a hosted system, basically like is Lambda is another one that work on the same SaaS systems. But when you have the hosted system, EC2-based system, okay, then you need to have the network access control, okay, because you want to allow certain ports to be accessible or not. because those are actually running on the some EC2 systems. Then you need to prove the security groups. You need to put whether it's in a public subnet is required or it need to be a private subnet. Okay, which subnet is only have access or not. Okay, then you also need to make sure that your data need to be encrypted. So how you encrypt the data? Okay, how the disk is managed for underlying storage systems. So that all things that you need to look after when you have the hosted system for a security point of view. So you also need to know about that point. So now when you have those kind of systems, you understand the networking, you understand the securities. So now to connect those systems, you need to understand the IAM, Identity and Access Control. So this is the place where whenever you create an account, you first land it into this account, this place. Then you create your username. Mostly people work with a root user. Okay, that should not be done. You should not use the root user, but you create one more user which has a least privilege and do the activity. You not share the root user to anyone else. Okay, you should have the MFS. So these are general rules for IAM access. But when you want to have an application, okay, when you run one small component and you want to upload a file to the S3 bucket, so what you do, you create the role, and then in the role you put the policies that this resource should allow put bucket, get bucket, put object, get object policies, and then associate that role to your EC2 system. So whenever the code run into the EC2 system, it would have access to S3 bucket and it would allow to do the certain operations. So that's why the roles is required. Roles applies to the everywhere S3 bucket, or even if you have a Lambda and Lambda wants to connect to the DynamoDB, then you need to assign the role to the Lambda. If Lambda wants to connect to the S3 bucket, you need to assign the role to the Lambda to have the S3 bucket. In a certain points, there are other ways of policies also where you don't assign the policies who calls the system. Okay, but like for S3 bucket, you can assign direct policies over the S3 bucket that whoever meet the certain requirement can access this object. So you don't put the policies on this side, but let the S3 bucket know who it allow or not. So you need to understand that how the IAM works and how the IAM lets you connect from the one services or another services. And this is the first problem that you will encounter whenever you deploy your first Lambda wants to connect to the S3 bucket or a DynamoDB or anyone in the hello world. And why it doesn't work? This is the case because the policies are not put in place properly. So what is work? It has a policies. Policy is basically a JSON document which define very granular level of permissions, and every permissions in the AWS is basically an API call internally, and you need to craft that document in a JSON, okay, and then you save as a policies. If you have a bunch of policies, okay, you can assign individual policies to the user or the role, or you need to combine it as a role, okay, and then assign the role to the user, okay, or the EC2 systems. And for a user, you put the policies to the group, and put the group user into the group. So this is how either the user can access the resources, or can other your EC2 systems or your code can access the resources. So that's why that is extremely required, and everything has to be go with the role-based access control. So you don't create a role which allows star.star. Okay, you create a granular role where you want to do the only this system should upload a file. You create that small role, okay, and then don't let that it get the file or delete the file. Because this is how you control your system, put the parameter where you restrict the unnecessary data alterations, data modifications, or data leaking. Okay. Policies for a SaaS, we already spoke about that. You create the resources associated with either the role associated to the services like S3 bucket, the Lambda. Everywhere you need to assign either a policy or the role ARN, and then based on the role ARN, it will let you connect to the other systems. On the other hand, you have a systems which you put the policy, and if some incoming request comes, it would allow and validate whether you need it or you don't need it. Okay, you have a privilege accelerated or not. And the good thing is that when you have this kind of all accesses, okay, all API SDK accesses, you can go in a AWS CrowdTrail system, and CrowdTrail will let you know like how your system is getting accessed. Okay, who interact with your cloud, who run certain APIs, and then how the entire whether like it's allowed or not. You see the all detailed information for a monitoring purpose. Okay, multi-factor is important. Again, I said don't share the root user. Okay, even you don't use upfront the IAM. You should use the identity center system. This is another security services which you allow to do a much fine-grained control over the IAM policies and access and logging and user authentications. So now you have IAM, but now you want to write the code. So how would you write the code? Okay, what you need it. Okay, so AWS provides you the SDK of the entire AWS services and pretty much everything that AWS builds. Okay, so what SDK consists? Okay, consider you wants to upload a file. Okay, on the S3 bucket, how would you do this one? So either you are a Java programmer or a Python programmer. Okay, or even consider you are a Node programmer, or you want to go with the Go or any other, even the PHP. So they have SDKs for all major programming language across the spectrum. Now you take this modules based on if you use the Java, then Java module load. You put your credentials into your code, okay, and then you have APIs like upload file, put objects, put file, and those Java code or the equivalent to the Python code. You execute those ones. But how it executes? So what it does is basically, whenever you make any call from the AWS SDKs, it connects to the IAM first. It evaluates whether you are authorized to do the certain operations or not. Okay, and then once you are authorized, okay, then it goes and then execute your command to the system. Okay, so that is why when you apply the policies or you have a role, okay, roles are always evaluated every time. It is not that once you are logged in and it evaluated the first time and then let you go every time because it knows that you already came last year. Okay, I know you, but I'll also get pass through you. No, each and every request is being authorized, being verified, being authenticated, and then executed. Okay, so here is a completely zero trust policies are applied and then execute the code. You can put this SDK in a debug mode and then you would see the series of communication that happens before your actual code can execute. So this is how your IAM is come in place in between whenever you want to have any of the accesses and systems within the programming. Okay, so now you have securities, networking, IAM, and then you have the SDK that you need to use for your program. Okay, it pretty much everywhere available, and whatever new services are there, they are keep adding new and new SDKs. So use latest SDK, and then you write the code. Okay, if you are using a Lambda, then if you are using Lambda with the Python, then the Moto, which is a Python APIs for SDK are already available. Similarly, SDKs, you can use those one with the Hello World. You just need to import those objects and you start programming it. Okay, or you go ahead and then you can import it with the external systems. Deployment, yes, it has all continuous integrations, build systems, code pipeline, code build, code deploy, artifacts, builds management. So you can do a series of complex build deployment systems, and it's work according to the AWS where you can directly upload the certain artifacts to the certain the systems, and it deploys according to you how it built. Once you build it, you need to monitor it. Okay, now your system is in the system. So every logs that get produced, it goes to the CloudWatch. From the application point of view, you can use the CloudWatch log services, CloudWatch alerting systems, CloudWatch monitoring system, CloudWatch dashboards to see your application logs performance. Then if you want to see who you access your cloud, how the cloud is get executed, who log in, who authorized, who logged out, then you can use the AWS CloudTrail systems for your access control monitoring for that one. And you can use XNX, basically your inter-service communication monitoring system. So it comes in advance when you write basic level of code. But when you have a microservices, you would need the XREST. It trace you every incoming calls between one application to another application to third application. It tell you if certain requests are getting failed, then where it is failure. So it gives you an entire track. So this is what the X-Ray does. CloudTrail we already spoke about. It's all your cloud auditing systems. Metrics, their log managements are there. If you create a container, container logs goes to there. Postgres logs will find it out. If you run the Lambda, Lambda logs will goes to the cloud watch. And the cloud watch, you can create certain alarms. It can execute. You can put it even. You can monitor your system, CPUs and everything, and then it can be alerts and based on conditions. This alarm can be used for auto scaling systems to up and down. So this is how the cloud watch and the logging that is important for a monitoring purpose. Application can be deployed, developed, yes, web applications, static applications, S3 buckets, web apps, scalable apps on the EC2s. Mobile apps, yes, you can have API gateway, Lambda, serverless API with the DynamoDB, and app syncs. We also show that amplifier. So those are all serverless mobile apps that you can build over that one. Then specialized at big data, it has all series of large scale data monitoring, data pipeline systems that you can have that one. Second one is machine learning app, IoT apps. It has all sort of IoT configurations, platforms, details that you can build it over that one. There are a series of services are for that, built for that one. That is for me. If you have a question, and we already run out of the time, so I'll not take the questions right now, but I'm here roaming around. If you have any questions, you can just come up and ask me, and then we can deep dive on that one. Thank you.
Wow, guys. So that was like an entire small crash course on DevOps on AWS. And Abhilasha ma'am, I guess we should all give them certificates. DevOps on AWS. So please give a huge round of applause for Ravi sir. And I would like to ask Abhilasha ma'am to felicitate sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am. So now everyone please scan this QR because you have to give feedbacks to